Have ignition sequence start. The engines are on. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The Common Senseless Podcast starts now.
Hello and welcome to the Common Senseless Podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Depperschmidt. Common Senseless is common sense in a world that has none. We have an excellent show for you today. We've got 30-year-old grandmas, Whoopi Goldberg, and the controversial topic of abortion. And guess what? We're just in time for the birth of Christ. So there's a new show coming out called 30-Year-Old Grandmas, and it's basically exactly what the title sounds like. It's a show about grandmas that are in their 30s, and what it's like raising your kid and your grandchild. This is kind of dumb, really. If your kid has a baby when they're in high school, there's no reason that it should be your problem to raise their baby. I don't know. The article I read this morning was all against, having children at a young age, which obviously I'm for. If you go back to episode 3 of the Common Senseless Podcast, I think you're putting way too much pressure on young kids not to have sex at such a young age and pushing marriage off until their 30s. If you're a kid and you're thinking, I've got to make it till I'm 30, 35 years old before I have sex, well, you're not going to wait till you're 30, 35 years old to have sex. So I think it's a natural consequence of us as parents saying, hold off, that these kids are going to have sex younger and younger, because why not have sex now? I'll use a condom, I'll be safe, whatever, and there's no consequences. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. If you thought you only had to wait till you were 18, graduated from high school, that's only 4 or 5 years away from the time you hit puberty. You're going to be a lot more apt to make it till you're 18 than you will be to make it till you're 35. What's so bad about being 30 and being a grandparent? Is it just the title grandparent makes you feel old, or is it? I've heard all growing up, being a grandparent is way better than being a parent because you're not raising them. Now, here's where I think the kicker is. You've got 30-year-old grandparents and they're raising their children still and raising their grandchildren, and that's just lack of common sense. If your kid has decided, you know what, I'm not going to wait till I'm married to have sex, then you need to let them have consequences. There are consequences to every single action that you will ever face in life. And it's not always a bad consequence. Sometimes there's good consequences. If I brush my teeth in the morning, the consequence of me brushing my teeth is that I'll have fresh breath. Now, if I decide not to brush my teeth that morning, consequence is that I'm going to have bad breath. Every action has a consequence, whether it's good or bad. Which leads me to my main topic, abortion. So on my podcast, if the Bible speaks clearly about a topic, I am going to side on the side of the Bible because that makes the most common sense. The Bible is very clear when it says don't kill. It doesn't say don't kill unless you have a good excuse. Don't kill if it may not be a baby yet. It just says don't kill. So I'm going to go ahead and say that common sense would dictate that abortion is wrong with biblical standards, okay? So, and also, I personally am pro-life. So, that being said, let me tell you the two major reasons I believe that abortion is so prevalent in today's society. Number one is selfishness. And number two, I believe, is that we have taken consequences away from people from the time they're a child. And so let me talk about selfishness a little bit first. The reason I put selfishness as the number one reason that people are having abortions today is because 90% of the people you'll talk to will say they decided to abort their child because they weren't financially stable. Well, that's pretty selfish. You took a life because you weren't ready financially. You know, and another common one you'll hear is that, you know, what if a woman got raped? Would you think that she should have to go through and have this abortion and not have to go through the process of having a birth? Also think that's very selfish. You're taking a life to save another person some pain. Those two things don't really compare in the end. You're giving one person no chance to live while you're giving another person a little bit of comfort. There's so many people who want to adopt children, and it's even in Hollywood these days. It's popular to adopt. So I don't see, you know, with that being out there, I don't see how you could have an abortion without just being completely selfish. Second, if you are, and I think that society in whole is to blame for this, okay? We've taken consequences out of everything. I mean, like we talked on the beginning of the show, you know, if there's a consequence for everything, the consequence for sex is becoming pregnant. We're a society that's so consumed with having no consequences for anything. And it's not just with sex. I mean, you look in PE, like we've taken away dodgeball or anything like that because we wouldn't want the consequence of a child having to go through the pain of losing at something. We don't hand out, you know, trophies at school function sporting events across the country because someone might not get a ribbon. There's no consequence for not trying hard at running, or, you know, and there's millions of excuses, but we've taken consequences out of everything. We've taken consequences out of sex more than anything else, though, I believe, because if you can give in to the pleasures of sex but not have any of the consequences, well, it's all just fun and games. And so you almost have to have abortions to keep yourself consequence free. And the same with, like, the morning after pills and stuff that's out there now. It's all there's a whole, I mean, that whole field is there because people don't want to have consequences for their actions. It's irresponsible. That's why we say to our Christian kids, don't have sex until you're ready to be married. And that's why in episode 3 we talked so much about why is it so bad for kids to get married young. If you want to eliminate consequences, like from a Christian point of view, eliminate mistakes of having sex with multiple partners. Make it to where your kid feels okay getting married young, and it doesn't feel like he's missing out on life or whatever by having a spouse. That's just complete nonsense. I mean, these kids are ready to have sex by age of 13, 14, 15, and we're telling them to hold off until they're 35. It doesn't make any... You guys see where I'm coming from? It doesn't make any sense. We need more consequences for our actions. If we don't, pay our bills on time, they should turn the lights out on our house. If we don't, wait till we're married and ready to have kids to have sex, then we should have babies. If we, I don't know. I heard an analogy one time that I want to pass along, and I don't want to talk about this topic for too much longer because I know it gets talked about all the time. But the analogy I heard was, it was actually an interview I saw on YouTube, and the guy was asking people, like, if you were going to blow up this building, I gave you a button, and if you push this button, it's going to blow up the building. And I told you we hadn't looked through the building yet. There may be little kids inside playing. Would you go ahead? You don't know. We don't know if there's kids inside playing. But would you go ahead and push the button to blow up the building? No, absolutely not. You wouldn't blow it up with the possibility of killing a little kid. But we asked the same question, would you have an abortion? And almost all of the same people he asked said yes. And he said, why? Don't you know that's a little kid? And they're like, yeah, but it's not really a baby yet. It's just an embryo. But do you know that? No, you don't know that. You wouldn't blow up a building if you knew little kids, if you didn't even know if little kids were inside, yet you're willing to blow up a child. I found that to be one of those, stop and think moments. And the people he was interviewing would stop and think, and they'd be like, you know what? I've never really thought of it like that before. I stand on abortion. Anyway, I thought that what better time to talk about abortion and to get this topic out right before Christmas, where the most important birth of all times takes place when Jesus was born in the manger. If abortion would have been around, would it have been easier for Mary to be like, you know what, this whole, getting impregnated by God thing is going to be weird to tell to all my friends. Maybe I should just go get an abortion. Whoa! I'm so glad that Jesus didn't wait until today to come, because he probably would have been aborted. Someone thought they got impregnated in a dream. They'd be going to have that abortion. I mean, it's messed up where we've become so. It's like such a easy thing for us to go do. I don't know. To me, it was just like, you know what? I think this has a lot of meaning behind it. Here we are celebrating the most important birth of all times. What better time to talk about abortion?
Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of the dear Savior's birth.
Well, my Idiot of the Week award is going out to Whoopi Goldberg for her comment on The View yesterday. Have you heard this?
This is what happens with communism. It's a great concept. On paper, it makes perfect sense.
Well, I'm going to end it on that note. Join us next week as we have the one and only Craig Smith live in studio. He's going to be helping me cut through the static that surrounds Christian music. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all my listeners. Join us next week as we cut through the static noise.
I feel lit, doing